Hello there guys, it's Miss Charlotte and welcome back to another video. So today's video is a little speed build and today I decided to try out the new mod that I had recently purchased. I'm pretty sure it's fairly new and also it's not a mod. What am I talking about? I think it was a stuff pack or some sort of game pack anyway, an expansion pack, whatever you want to call it, and it was the tiny house one. So I thought I'd experiment and try to make the first tier, so tier 1 tiny house, which I believe is 32 tiles. So with tiny houses, for it to qualify for each tier, there's a certain amount of tiles that the house or build must be a maximum of. So for tier 1 it was 32, I believe. So yeah, I thought I'd try that out, and the style I went for was a quite light and bright wooded, overgrown, very plant filled tiny house, and that was the kind of thing I was going for. I found it quite challenging at first because I'd never built one before. I've never really used this expansion pack, and so at first I was just experimenting with the shape of the house and I wasn't actually really counting the tiles. I was just kind of doing it and seeing, because it kind of counts for you when qualifying for each tier, and it took me a while to get from tier 2 to tier 1 because I kept overbuilding, but this was the shape that I ended up going for. It was a little bit weird and I kept faffing inside with what size I wanted the rooms and stuff, because in my mind I thought as long as there's a bathroom really as a separate room, everything else can kind of be open planned, but at first I did want to make it a bedroom separately as well, but then I ended up deciding that it was going to be way too difficult, because doors take up space as well, in terms of it being functional anyway, so instead I decided very open plan and just to have a bathroom separately, and I just kind of wanted to make it really nice and bright, some lovely woods, and a really interesting not wallpaper, but a bricking for the outside. I wasn't sure how much I liked that. Also, I felt the structure of the house was so weird because I used diagonals, which probably wasn't a good idea, but at the end you'll see I try to rectify it with the use of some plants, and kind of made some plant / flower beds surrounded with rocks and stuff, which I really liked. But yeah, so I started working on the interior, and I was just kind of looking around and saying, how am I meant to do this? Obviously a really good thing that comes with this pack is this fold out bed which doubles up as a sofa, so it's a nice 2-in-1 kind of thing, which definitely is a space saver. So I started with that, and annoyingly it does take up a little bit of room and it only comes as a double, I believe, which is kind of annoying, so I did fit that in there and I kind of worked around it. So next I was kind of looking, where am I going to put the kitchen? Obviously as I was doing an open plan I just needed to fit it around in the main room, and in my head I was just going for the absolute minimum that you needed. So a sink, and I was only going to do one sink for the house, if that makes sense, because there was no point trying to squeeze in 2 sinks, one for the kitchen and one for the bathroom, when you could just use one. At least one free counter for food preparation, 1 stove and 1 fridge. So that was the kind of minimum I went for, and I also squeezed in a little corner counter just for a little plant or something, because as much as I wanted to go for the bare minimum so I could fit it all in the tiny house, at the same time I didn't really want it to look really horrible and crammed and like very, very minimalistic, because obviously you can do it in a minimalistic way where it looks nice, but I wanted to make it look quite homey, with a few garnishes. I always say garnishes like it's a dish, with a few furnishings, that's what I mean, quite a few, for it to look quite nice, so that's what I went for. I did use I guess it's a cheat because you use the cheat bar to put it in, but BB move objects, just so I could slide objects closer to each other, because in the normal game pack without that, or in the normal game version, it just kind of slots things in with like, it doesn't let boxes overlap, if that makes sense. What am I trying to say? You know, the surrounding areas for each object, there's like a little grid, it doesn't let you overlap those. However, with that sheet it does. However, I did play test the build afterwards to make sure it was fully functional in terms of how close I put things together, because obviously if you put things too close together, like opposite each other, or like perpendicular to each other, they won't work. But everything in this game was in this house rather was fully functional, which is great. But yeah, I quite liked it. So with the bathroom, I just didn't do a sink. I did a toilet and one of those wall showers because I thought, I don't know, it's quite cute and cozy, and just a very simple house I wanted this to be anyway. Just kind of like I don't know, in my head I had it, someone would live here who kind of didn't really have a job, maybe a little part-time job somewhere in a little convenience shop, but just had a cat. Also, yeah, I made it fit for either 2 people or a single person and a cat, so I was quite impressed I managed to fit all the cat stuff in here. But yeah, someone who would live here would just like have a cat and do a little bit of gardening at home and just have a nice kind of light and bright but cozy house, fit for just a very small person. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's really nice. I like the idea of a tiny house because with providing the kind of objects that can fit in a tiny house, like these sofa bed things, it just makes it a cheaper way of living, really, because with the double beds and stuff and having to have certain things in a house, it does limit how small you can make it and therefore how cheap you can make it. So I do like the idea of tiny living, and I know it's a lot of people on YouTube and just in general in the Sims community like making tiny houses, so I'm glad they made it a pack. I think they could do a lot more with it, but yeah, it's really interesting for now. I liked it. The one thing I kept finding really challenging was to get the counter swatches for some reason. It just wasn't fitting in with the rest of the interior design. I ended up going for, I don't even know which ones I went for in the end. Was it these ones maybe? I don't know, but as you can see, I was definitely trying a fair few to see what was going to work, because in my head, when things don't match, it drives me nuts, and then I gradually start changing all the swatches of everything. But I refrained, and I kept it all very warm toned, and some nice light woods, which I'm trying to do more often because I go for dark woods a lot. And again, I just try to put in like little bits and bobs that you'd have in a house, because I really think it makes a difference in a build when you add the little miscellaneous items like a dressing gown and a towel rack and kitchen roll in the kitchen and that kind of stuff. And also I went ham with the plants because I wanted it to be a very planty build, if that makes sense. I really think it makes a massive difference putting plants in a build. I think it makes it look a lot nicer. And then with the roof, I just kind of went for a random crazy roof. I made it very difficult for myself, making it a diagonal, a slightly diagonal house with weird edges and corners, but this is the roof I ended up going for. Also, what I really didn't like and found difficult choosing was the roof swatches. I really don't like them. I feel like Sims needs to up their game a little bit with the roof swatches, as in I feel like a lot of them just don't go with the wallpaper or the outer exterior wallpapers that there are, but I think I just settled with a little brown. And then the exciting part, I started working on the outside, and I really kind of enjoy doing this. I feel like I don't do it enough. I kind of add a tree and leave the build on the outside to look like that, and it looks quite plain. So this time, after sorting through a fair few trees, I added some trees and then decided to go in and add a few hedgerows, like so. I think I did, yeah, I ended up altering the sizes so they're not massive. And then what I do like doing is making a little flower plant bed and surrounding it by rocks. I really love it. I feel like I've seen it in builds in The Sims 3, and that's where I've got the idea of doing it from before. I think I've never really done it myself until Sims 4 though, when building, but I really like it. I think it just adds a little bit of shape to the house, and it just looks kind of cute and a bit natural, and yeah, it just makes things look more in place to me when you surround them with rocks. I don't know why, but yeah, that's kind of what I went for. And then also I decided to make it a little bit more overgrown, and that's kind of how I decided to call this build a kind of overgrown tiny house, because I just wanted it to be quite rural and quite homely, and that was the kind of vibe I was going for. So I decided to add some ivy and some climbing plants and flowers, which I thought was quite nice. And yeah, I hope you liked this build. That was pretty much it for it. It was a bit of a quick one in terms of, because it was such a small build, there wasn't much to do, but I really did like it. I've been enjoying using all the different tiny house bits and bobs that come with the game pack. It's been really interesting. So I hope you guys liked the video, and if you did, do feel free to give it a thumbs up and leave a comment what other speed builds you would like to see in The Sims, and I will definitely try and bring them those for you. But other than that, do subscribe. I post every Wednesdays and Saturdays, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye.